If you've ever lived in a crowded American city, you know there are certain unspoken rules everybody follows if they want society to function. Don't blast music at 2 a.m., don't cut in line at a coffee shop, and for the love of God, don't block an entire street during rush hour because you think your job is more important than everybody else's day. Apparently, one delivery driver never got that memo. It happened last fall on a cold Tuesday afternoon downtown. I was riding the city bus home after a brutal workday. Traffic was already packed because construction crews had half the streets narrowed down to single lanes. Between commuters, food delivery bikes, honking taxis, and pedestrians glued to their phones, the entire city felt one minor inconvenience away from complete collapse. And then, we found that inconvenience. Our bus turned onto a narrow one-way street lined with old brick apartment buildings and tiny businesses squeezed shoulder to shoulder. About halfway down the block, traffic suddenly stopped dead. At first, nobody thought much of it. Downtown traffic always sucked. But after 5 minutes passed without movement, people on the bus started getting restless. Everyone leaned sideways in their seats trying to see what was happening up ahead. That's when we spotted the truck, a giant white delivery truck with the logo of some regional construction supply company splashed across the side in blue letters. And where had this genius parked? Right in the only driving lane. Not halfway in, not pulled slightly to the curb, completely blocking the street like he owned the city. The truck sat there with his hazard lights blinking proudly while the driver casually unloaded materials into a nearby construction site like absolutely nothing was wrong. Behind us, traffic stretched farther and farther by the minute. Cars kept turning onto the street without realizing there was no exit ahead. Horns started blaring from every direction. Inside the bus, people were losing patience fast. A woman near the front muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." A businessman in a wrinkled suit checked his watch every 30 seconds and sighed dramatically. Someone in the back yelled, "Move the damn truck!" Still nothing. The driver kept unloading equipment at the pace of a man enjoying a peaceful Saturday afternoon. Our bus driver finally laid on the horn for a solid 5 seconds. The delivery driver slowly turned around with the expression of someone mildly annoyed that the peasants were making noise. He walked toward the bus, hands on hips, like we were the problem. The bus driver slid open his window. "You can't park there," he shouted. "You're blocking the entire street." The delivery guy shrugged. "Making a delivery," he said. "Yeah, well, move your truck." The guy pointed lazily toward the construction site. "I'm authorized." That sentence nearly caused a riot on public transportation. Passengers immediately started yelling over one another. "Authorized to block the whole damn city? There's a loading zone around the corner. You think nobody else has places to be?" The driver just rolled his eyes. Then, this part still irritates me, he actually laughed. Not nervous laughter, cocky laughter, like he enjoyed the power trip, like inconveniencing dozens of strangers was somehow funny. At that point, even residents from nearby apartments started coming outside to complain. One older guy wearing slippers stood on the sidewalk screaming that emergency vehicles wouldn't even be able to get through if needed. The delivery driver didn't care. He kept unloading boxes. Slowly, painfully slowly. 25 minutes. That's how long we sat trapped there. 25 full minutes of horns, shouting, missed appointments, angry commuters, and complete gridlock because one guy decided basic traffic laws didn't apply to him. And the entire time, he acted like everybody else was overreacting. Eventually, he finished unloading, climbed back into the truck, and drove away without even acknowledging the chaos he caused. As traffic finally crawled forward again, the entire bus erupted into exhausted complaining. The businessman in the suit missed a train connection. A woman near me said she'd be late picking up her kid from daycare. One guy joked that we'd all die of old age before getting home. But while everyone else moved on with their day, I couldn't let it go. Maybe it was because the driver had been such an arrogant jerk about it. Maybe it was because he clearly thought there'd never be consequences. Or maybe I was just tired of people acting like their time mattered more than everyone else's. Either way, by the time I got off the bus, I already had a plan forming. See, during the whole ordeal, I'd done something most people didn't think to do. I took pictures. Truck number, license plate, company logo, everything. Originally, I figured I'd just call the company and complain. But the more I thought about it, the more pointless that sounded. Companies like that don't care unless something costs them money. At best, some manager would give the guy a mild warning before everybody forgot about it 2 hours later. No. I wanted him personally inconvenienced. I wanted him to experience the exact frustration he forced onto dozens of strangers. And suddenly, while standing in my kitchen that night eating leftover takeout, inspiration hit me. What motivates almost everybody? Money. The next morning, during my lunch break, I bought a prepaid burner phone from a convenience store across town. Nothing fancy, just cheap, anonymous, and temporary. Then I sat in my car practicing an old man voice like some low-budget actor preparing for a crime documentary reenactment. By the third attempt, I sounded like a retired grandfather with mild allergies. Perfect. I called the construction company's headquarters.
A receptionist answered cheerfully. "Good afternoon, Carson Industrial Supply. How can I help you?" I lowered my voice into elderly kindness. "Well, hello there, young lady," I said warmly. "I think one of your drivers dropped some cash near a delivery yesterday downtown." There was immediate interest in her tone. "Oh, wow. Do you know which driver?" I gave her every detail. Date, street, truck number, time. Then I casually added the bait. It looked like a pretty significant amount, too. Hook set. She transferred me twice before eventually somebody from dispatch came on the line sounding much more serious. I repeated the story carefully. "I'd really like to return it directly to the driver if possible," I said. "Young man probably needs it more than I do." Within an hour, my burner phone rang. The delivery driver himself, and judging by the excitement in his voice, he already believed every word.
The guy called me less than an hour after I spoke to dispatch. The moment I answered, I could already hear excitement in his voice. "Hey, this is Mike from Carson Industrial. I heard you found some cash?" I almost laughed right there. The man sounded breathless, like he just discovered he won the lottery. But instead, I stayed fully committed to my elderly Good Samaritan character. "Oh, yes, sir," I replied warmly. "I think it might belong to you." There was a pause. "How much was it?" he asked carefully. Smart question. Too bad for him, I came prepared. "Well," I said slowly, "I didn't count every bill exactly, but it looked like around $1,800. Silence, then a sharp inhale. Bingo. That number was intentional, big enough to matter, small enough to sound believable. Not life-changing money suspicious, more like cash payment from a contractor realistic. "Oh man," he said quickly, suddenly invested. Yeah, I think that's mine." "Of course you do." I leaned back in my chair at work, trying not to grin like an idiot while he practically convinced himself the imaginary money existed. "Well, I'd sure like to return it," I said kindly. "Wouldn't feel right keeping somebody else's hard-earned cash." Now he sounded almost emotional. "Seriously, man, thank you. Most people wouldn't do that." If only he knew. We arranged a meeting for Friday afternoon, conveniently during rush hour, conveniently in the city, conveniently about 45 minutes from where he lived and worked. The entire week leading up to it, I couldn't stop thinking about how ridiculous the situation was. Every time my phone buzzed, I'd see another message from him checking in politely. "Still good for tomorrow? Really appreciate this. Can't thank you enough." The irony was unbelievable. This guy had trapped an entire street without caring about anybody's schedule, but suddenly, his time mattered. That Friday, I got home from work early and positioned myself near the front window of my apartment with a perfect view of the neighborhood recreation center down the block. That building became the stage for my masterpiece. I'd intentionally chosen it because it had multiple entrances, huge parking lots, and enough foot traffic to create confusion. Plus, I could comfortably watch the entire thing unfold from my living room like a retired supervillain. At exactly 4:42 p.m., my burner phone buzzed. "Hey, I'm here." I peeked through the blinds. There he was, the same delivery driver from the block street, same heavy build, same shaved head, same permanently irritated expression. He parked near the entrance of the rec center and climbed out of his truck looking around expectantly. Even from a distance, I could tell he was excited. The man genuinely thought he was about to collect $1,800 from a random stranger. I texted back immediately. "So sorry, running a few minutes behind, picking up prescription nearby." His response came fast. "No worries." Oh, there would absolutely be worries. For the next 10 minutes, I watched him pace around the parking lot. He smoked a cigarette, checked his phone repeatedly, and kept glancing toward incoming traffic. I imagined him mentally spending the fake money already, maybe paying bills, maybe buying something stupid, maybe bragging to coworkers later about the lucky break. The longer he waited, the funnier it became. After another several minutes, I sent another apologetic text. "So sorry, pharmacy line taking forever." This time his response was shorter. "All good." Translation: hurry up. Traffic outside the rec center thickened as commuters flooded through the neighborhood. Horns echo faintly down the avenue, while the driver leaned against his truck looking increasingly annoyed. Good. 25 minutes. That was the magic number. Exactly the amount of time our bus had been trapped behind his truck. I wanted every minute to match. At the 20-minute mark, he called. I let it ring out. Then texted, "Can't talk inside pharmacy." A full minute passed before he answered. "K." The patience was cracking. I nearly lost composure laughing. Finally, after exactly 25 minutes of waiting, I sent the next message. "I'm inside the rec center now." The reaction was immediate. He threw his cigarette onto the pavement, stomped it out aggressively, and hurried inside the building. Showtime. A few moments later, my burner phone exploded with calls. I ignored all of them. Then came the text. "Where are you? I'm in the lobby. What are you wearing?" I waited 2 full minutes before replying. "Oh dear, I think I saw you, but I'm on other side of building, using crutches, so moving snow." The man actually went back inside. I watched through the window as he disappeared through the rec center entrance again, now visibly irritated.
At this point, I was laughing so hard I had tears in my eyes. Several more calls came through. Then another text. Dude, where are you? No more polite language now. Interesting how quickly kindness disappears when inconvenience enters the picture. A few minutes later, he stormed back outside, pacing aggressively across the parking lot while staring at his phone. That's when I decided the moment had arrived. I answered his next call. Hello, he snapped instantly. This time, I used my real voice. Calm, clear, not even pretending anymore. Hey man, I said casually. Waiting sucks, huh? Silence. What? You remember blocking that entire street downtown Monday afternoon? I continued. Big white truck, rush hour traffic, bus trap behind you for 25 minutes. Nothing. I could practically hear his brain trying to catch up. Then realization hit. Oh, you Yeah, I interrupted. I was on that bus. The guy exploded instantly. You think this is funny? Honestly, I said, a little. He started screaming curses loud enough that I could hear them through my phone and faintly through my apartment window. People near the rec center entrance started staring at him. Perfect. You wasted my damn time. I smiled. Exactly. Then I added my favorite part. Oh, and by the way, I'm literally watching you from my apartment right now. The man froze mid-rant. Actually froze. Then he spun around wildly in the parking lot trying to figure out where I was watching from. His face turned bright red almost instantly. It was magnificent.
The second I told him I was watching from my apartment, the guy completely lost his mind. He stood in the middle of the rec center parking lot, turning in circles like an angry bull trying to locate a matador. Even from my window, I could see the exact moment embarrassment hit him harder than anger. Because suddenly, he realized something important. He'd been played. Not by a scammer, not by a criminal, by one of the random strangers he'd arrogantly trapped in traffic and dismissed like they didn't matter. And now he was the one standing around wasting time while people stared. The symmetry of it was beautiful. "You think this is a joke?" he yelled into the phone. I leaned comfortably against my couch. "No," I replied calmly. "I think blocking an entire street for 25 minutes because you're too lazy to find legal parking was the joke." "You psycho!" "Maybe," I admitted, "but at least I know how traffic works." That pushed him over the edge. He started unloading every insult imaginable into the phone while pacing beside his truck. A couple walking toward the rec center entrance actually turned around and went back the other direction after hearing him scream. The best part? I barely had to say anything. Once angry people lose control publicly, they humiliate themselves far better than anyone else ever could. "You wasted my damn afternoon over this?" he shouted. I laughed. "Actually, you wasted your own afternoon, same way you wasted everybody else's Monday." That line landed hard, because deep down, he knew I was right. He started demanding to know where exactly I lived, threatening to come find me, threatening lawyers, threatening cops, threatening things tough guys always threaten when they realize they've been embarrassed. Thankfully, I thought ahead. The prepaid burner phone couldn't be traced back to me easily, and I'd never used my real name during any of our conversations. Plus, technically speaking, I never stole anything from him. You can't steal fake money. Eventually, I decided the conversation had reached its peak, so before hanging up, I gave him one final goodbye. "Next time," I said cheerfully, "try not blocking city streets like you own the place." Click. I ended the call. Down below, he stared furiously at his phone like it had personally betrayed him. Then came the meltdown. The guy kicked the side of his own truck hard enough to hurt himself. I know this because he immediately grabbed his foot afterward and hopped awkwardly for several seconds while cursing. I nearly choked laughing. He climbed into the driver's seat, slammed the door, then stayed parked there for another minute or two, probably debating whether to keep raging or just leave before he embarrassed himself further. Before driving off, though, he tried one last thing. My burner phone lit up with texts. "I'll find you. You think you're funny? You're dead if I see you again." Classic overcompensation. I didn't respond. Instead, I muted the phone, made dinner, and enjoyed one of the most peaceful evenings I'd had in weeks. But the story didn't fully end there. See, once I realized how incredibly easy it was to annoy this guy, I made one tiny mistake. I got a little carried away. Over the next several days, I occasionally called him from random public phones around the city. Nothing excessive, nothing threatening, just enough to remind him. A hotel lobby guest phone worked especially well, because the calls came from legitimate business numbers. Once, I left him a voicemail while sitting in the lobby of a downtown Marriott, pretending to wait for someone. I kept the message simple. "Hey buddy," I said casually, "just checking in. Hope you're not blocking traffic anywhere today." Click. Another time I called from a hospital waiting room phone. "Hey man," I said once he answered, "hope you didn't really need that $1,800. Then I hung up before he could respond. "Petty? Absolutely. But honestly,
After years of dealing with selfish people in city life, it felt weirdly therapeutic watching somebody finally experience consequences for their behavior. And according to one mutual contact I accidentally discovered later, the guy apparently became paranoid for weeks afterward. He started accusing coworkers of pranking him. He complained constantly about crazy people in the city. And best of all, apparently his company actually heard about the original traffic incident because multiple residents filed complaints separately that same week. Karma works in mysterious ways. Now looking back, I know some people would probably say I overreacted. Maybe I did. But if you had been trapped on that bus watching this smug idiot ignore an entire street full of frustrated people while acting like the rules didn't apply to him, you might understand why I snapped. The thing that bothered me most wasn't even the inconvenience itself. It was the arrogance. That attitude some people have where they genuinely believe everybody else's schedule, stress, and responsibilities matter less than theirs. We've all dealt with people like that. The driver who blocks intersections, the guy blasting videos on speakerphone in public, the customer screaming at minimum wage employees. The person who thinks I'm important somehow translates into rules don't apply to me. Most of the time, those people go through life without consequences. That's what makes them keep doing it. And honestly, maybe that's why the prank satisfied me so much. For one afternoon, the delivery driver became the inconvenienced person instead of the inconvenience. For 25 glorious minutes, his time got wasted. His plans got delayed. His frustration became somebody else's entertainment. Exactly what he'd done to dozens of strangers downtown. Do I regret it? Maybe a tiny bit. The repeated phone calls afterward were probably unnecessary. But the setup itself? No chance. To this day, whenever I get stuck in traffic behind some entitled idiot blocking a lane with hazard lights flashing, I think about that bright red face spinning around the rec center parking lot searching apartment windows for me. And honestly, it still makes me smile.